Hi everyone, I'm Josh, and this is Josh Wright Piano TV. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope today's insights can help each of you. Today I wanted to discuss the concept that performing is a separate skill that you have to develop. A lot of times students will email me and say, I had this perfect in my practice sessions, and then I get on stage and everything falls apart. Why is that? Is that common? Is it uncommon? Is it just me? First of all, it's not just you. Everyone struggles with that. And the solution that I've found that works really well for me is having a regimen to help you improve your skills as a performer. Something that I will commonly do is try to get 10 performances of a piece before the actual big concert or recital comes up. If it's a small little concert for family and friends, or just a local community concert that you're not as nervous for, or if you're using old repertoire, for instance, maybe you can get away with 3 to 5 performances. I'm preparing a new piece right now, the third movement of the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, Opus 27, number 2. And I just finished memorizing it, and the concert's in about a week and a half. Now, this is putting it way too close to the performance for my normal comfort level. But this week, I'll be performing it every single day to try to get those 10 performances in before I actually perform it on January 6th. So if any of you are struggling with performing, a couple of other quick tips: go through your music and make sure that you have rescue points. So these can be large sections, but within those large sections, I would also make smaller sections. So going through, let's say you have a sonata that's 8 pages long. Maybe, you know, the exposition is 3 pages, the development is 2 pages, and the recap's 3, something like that. And you have those 3 pages. Don't just have the whole exposition as one rescue point and you have to jump all the way to the development. Have each of your themes be big rescue points, and then within those themes have little cues as well that you could jump to in case something goes wrong. A lot of times you see people completely fall apart on stage. They will get to a certain spot, mess up, go back a measure or two, mess up in the same spot, go back, mess up in the same spot, and then they're like so flustered that they just end up jumping forward anyway. Whenever you make a mistake, you always want to try to jump forward because, first of all, a lot of times, I'm not going to say it's less noticeable, but it's less severe than going back. It's so obvious when you go back, whereas if you just jump 1 or 2 or 3 notes ahead, it's just a little flub that, you know, you can probably get away with. But and I've seen professionals do that before. I've only seen one professional ever start completely over, and it was shocking to see that. Whereas I have seen quite a few professionals make little mistakes and then they just keep going. It's like just a little stumbling block and then they keep going. So I would highly recommend always jumping forward. Another little practice tip that I like to do for performing is to imagine myself in the third person and just imagine that I'm listening very carefully. I have other videos both here on YouTube and in the VIP Masterclass series. I'll link that in the description below, going over a lot more performing tips that I like to do, but those are just a few of my favorites. But I did want to establish that performing is a separate skill that you have to work at. You can't be just a great practicer in your home and expect that to translate well onto stage. No matter how well you do by yourself, you have to practice getting in front of other people. So if you're just a hobbyist, someone who likes to play piano for their own enjoyment, you really need to ask yourself, do I want to be playing in front of others? If so, you have a long journey ahead of you of practicing that skill over and over and over. People say, how do you not get so nervous anymore? And I get a little bit nervous for sometimes new pieces or big competitions I would get nervous for, but everything in comparison to those big competitions is not too nerve-wracking. So people say, how do you do that? It's because I've done those big performances that a local small community concert like I'm doing next week. I mean, it's not too small. I think hundreds of people will come based on their normal concert attendance. But something in comparison to like the preliminaries of the Chopin competition, which I did back in 2015, where the whole world is watching and, you're one of 160 people invited to play, man, that was serious pressure. So just practice that. Imagine that it's a muscle that you have to keep working out, that performance muscle. If you want to perform for people, you need to be constantly doing it in order to get better at it. You can't just say, I'm going to practice several hours a day and really devote myself to this, and hopefully by the recital I'll be ready. You have to set up different situations. One other thing I would recommend is sabotaging yourself before the performance gets there. I remember before Carnegie Hall, I would go make snowballs in Michigan winter, which was probably like 0 degrees outside. It was so cold, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be -degrees Celsius. And I'd make snowballs until I couldn't even really feel my hands anymore, hardly at all. And then I'd go into the practice room and start La Campanella. That was one of the pieces that I was playing there. And it was a very weird sensation. Your hands are thawing out by the time you get to that point, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. When you get to the warm stage and you're all warmed up and on a beautiful, immaculate piano, even though you're in front of an audience, it's not so hard anymore. So I hope today's tips have been helpful. If any of you have any questions, my email is josh@joshwrightpiano.com. I'm also going to link a few things in the description below. The first thing is for a free webinar containing 10 of my favorite tips to take your playing to that next level. It's a great thing to get started on this, new year, 2020. Set those 10 practice methods into your normal regimen when you're struggling with things. Those really do help. I mean, I've learned those from some of the best teachers in the world. So I'll link that in the description below. I'll also link a couple of my paid courses if you want to take your studies even deeper than this channel goes over. And then finally, I will link something to my kit, which is basically all the gear I use, beginner piano books, microphones, lighting, everything else that I use to create these videos, and other suggestions like books and CDs that I enjoy as well. Have a great week. Good luck in your practice sessions.